Hello everyone. So the last time I checked in with all of you, I was still in the middle of fighting with my bank to close my old account and everything, and I'm happy to report that is resolved. Got a new bank account somewhere else that only knows me by one name and probably won't send me mail to the wrong name, so hopefully that'll work out. Still never got a formal response from the person who said that they would handle this case, and not sure how else I'm supposed to interpret that. It's just completely obvious to me that they were not set up to handle something like this and had no interest in helping me, so I've actually been working towards fixing a minor error on my birth certificate, which is not technically related to my transition or being assigned male at birth or anything like that. The problem is that when my birth certificate was originally created, it was created with an error on it. Specifically, the street address for my mother was listed as what it is, but in the wrong town and with the wrong zip code. So I somehow managed to convince them to change the town to the correct town, but they refused to change the zip code without some sort of proof. And then I got bounced around through the town government and all over the place, and I swear there was a day where I emailed half the town government and most of them didn't reply and half of them sent me somewhere else, and long story short, I got nowhere. It's not super fun, but what I actually really need to do is talk to the town postmaster and get a letter from him. Basically, I'm to the point where I know exactly what I need to do, I just need to justify taking the time to actually do it. The problem is that it's like 30 minutes the wrong direction from work, and they're only there, the postmaster is only there between like 9 and 1, you know, Monday through Thursday. Like, I would have to take off time from work, basically, to do this, and I'm like, I don't know. So yeah, that's still ongoing, and by ongoing, I mean I haven't addressed it in weeks. Obviously, I've been a little busy. If this channel is any indication, I have had a very stressful time in my life right now, mostly due to therapy and electrolysis, which I'll get into shortly. I'm just having a hard time, but I am still swimming. Dory would be proud. Yeah, so electrolysis, with my PTSD in particular, especially some of the specific things that were done to me, I have a really hard time sitting still and allowing someone to hurt me, especially while telling me that it's for my own benefit. And obviously this is not that same circumstance. Like, obviously I am choosing to do this because I do know that it is better for me and that I need to go through it in order to like get to where I need to be in my life, but it is still painful. And not just physically, but like emotionally as well, because like it is bullshit that I have to deal with this. Like, you would think that hormones would control facial hair, but it's a unidirectional process just like voice. So once it's there for life, unless you take some sort of basically surgical intervention, which is exactly what I'm doing. The larger issue is that I should never have had to deal with this. I should have been born with a congruent body that matches my gender, but I was not, and I'm going to have to deal with that. The good news is that after each session, that hair is likely to not ever return. Every single one of those hairs that gets poked and zapped and plucked gets probably dead, which is great. It takes a while to find out if that's the case, and I've had some repeats already, but I feel like I'm making progress, so that's something. I've officially reached the point where I can shave in the morning and go out 12 hours later with no makeup on and not have a shadow, which is major, massive progress, as anyone who's ever had facial hair will tell you. Some of that is attributable to the very slow hair growth rate that I've always had and has gotten even slower since hormones, but mostly it's that the hair just simply no longer exists, which is exactly what I want. As I talked about in a previous video, I am writing that book that I said I would write about my transition and my experiences as a transgender woman, and yeah, so that's progressing. It's hard. There are some parts of this that are really hard to write. In particular, I've had a hard time finding the voice for this book that will work because, like, it's kind of a very niche audience of people who want to read a book about a transition but also don't know anything basically about trans people or their experiences. So I'm like trying not to come off condescending or, you know, like demanding or something like that, because I definitely want to be approachable. I want to be able to be taken seriously with this, but also like be a happy person. Like, I wouldn't say I'm trying to be like the cool girl or something like that, but I am trying to be approachable and somewhat funny. I feel like my humor comes through in my art, as you may have noticed. But like, I'm also recognizing that my humor is a really unhealthy coping mechanism that was developed out of necessity rather than desire, but hey, it's what I've got. I'm just struggling to find a way to keep it lighthearted and informative without being overbearing, and it's a hard balance, but I feel like I've found my groove with that. Another pleasant surprise has been that a structure has emerged on its own, which is great because I certainly didn't make one. In the NaNoWriMo community, I'm what's known as a pantser, basically someone who flies by the seat of their pants and just makes it up as they go. I'm a skirter, thank you very much. I'm very overpants. Actually, I went to a writing meetup of other people doing NaNoWriMo, and I was not anticipating that they would go around the room and ask us each what we are working on. And in my case, that means essentially outing myself to about 20 or 30 people, which was mildly terrifying, especially when they wanted me to go first. I was like, no, you can circle around. When they did get to me, according to my Apple Watch, my pulse was 168. I was a little scared, but I said what I was working on, and obviously I survived, so that's a first step. Yeah, it went surprisingly well, even given the age group in that room, which is a little ageist of me to say, but as a rule, people who are older are less accepting of LGBT people. You know, but like, I saw in their eyes, and I had some of this back and forth with them, where they were like wanting to ask me questions, and I'm like, that is why I'm writing this book, because I feel like there's not really a lot of accessible content out there about what the trans experience is like, and people just have these ideas of us from the media and like culture that don't make any sense, and I'm like, I'm just a person. Like, but I understand there's natural questions that come with, you know, someone being trans, so like, especially if it's vastly different from your experience. I mean, the reality is that most people just have no idea what people like me go through, and they want to understand. There's just not really an accessible way for them to do that, so I'm hoping I'm doing something good here. Although I did recently discover that apparently it is a very common phase of a transition for someone to be like, I want to answer all the questions and teach everybody all the things and help everyone understand everything about people like me. And then we retreat back because we're like, oh god, this was a mistake. So yeah, that book is progressing. I'm really happy with where I'm at. I've got about 13,000 words written, and it's the 16th today. So that puts me well behind where I'm supposed to be if I want to hit the actual NaNoWriMo goal of 50,000 words by the end of the month. But I'm gonna refocus and try to get that pounded out. In my last transition update video, I was talking about my levels were concerning to my endocrinologist, because she was like, hey, your potassium is at the line for where you can like be safe before you have to worry about, you know, spontaneously dropping dead. And your calcium in particular is really high. Now, I don't take a potassium supplement of any kind. I don't eat any bananas, any foods with like high potassium or anything. I guess probably the most high potassium is broccoli, if I'm getting that correctly. Or was it Brussels sprouts? I don't remember. Anyway, I eat vegetables. But yeah, like, I don't have like high potassium sources in my life, so I'm not even sure where that's coming from. I think it's mostly just buildup from the spironolactone, which does make you more likely to accumulate potassium, so I'm trying to keep an eye on that one. But I got my calcium levels back, and I said from the very beginning, you're not doing this test correctly. You're testing me right after I take my dietary supplements for the day, my vitamins, including calcium. So of course my calcium level is going to be high. And they were like, well, we just want to make sure your thyroid's okay. You should get a primary doctor anyway. I'm like, you know what? You're right. So my primary doctor looked at my results, tested me completely for the whole calcium thing with the thyroid activity and all that, and I'm fine. I'm good to go. So basically next time I go to my endocrinologist, I am going to not take my vitamins right before the test, which I think will help quite a bit. I'm healthy. I'm not dying, so that's good. Which is great because I feel alive and I would really like to stay this way now. But the next thing I had planned with my endocrinologist, and this was her idea, is that we want to increase the amount of estrogen that I'm taking in, both to have my estrogen level higher because it's where it's supposed to be, but also because if I get my estrogen level high enough, there's a chance that I'll be able to drop the spironolactone, which would be great to get rid of that diuretic and stop having to pee all the time, and it makes you like brain foggy and stuff, and you know, it's also inhibits breast growth according to emerging research, and I'm like, let's avoid that if we can. Yeah, it's kind of the worst way to block testosterone, but this is America and this is the only way you can, so thanks, America. Basically, I'm overdosing on this drug to block my testosterone. It's a side effect of high doses, which that's what I need to do, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm really hoping that my levels will get to the point where I can actually drop the testosterone blocker for multiple reasons. I can stop worrying about my liver function and my potassium and my kidneys and that would be great. That would be really great. Another thing that came out of this is that apparently I need to be re-inoculated for chickenpox and measles, which I'm like, okay, fine, let's do it. And they're like, well, no, it's a live vaccine. You can't be around any immunocompromised people for 72 hours. And I'm like, wait, what? Oh, and you also can't take them at the same time. So basically I'm gonna have to go back there, get this shot, then go immediately home and go near no one for 3 days. Which sounds like the perfect opportunity to finally play Luigi's Mansion 3 and Pokemon Shield, which I just got. Unfortunately, we are not sure where Amanda is at with her inoculations, so I really don't want to give my partner the measles or shingles. So we are going to defer that until we know where her immunization status is and possibly do them together, because then if we infect each other, it's like, hey, we got the same thing, woo! Hashtag relationship goals. So yeah, basically the reason my channel has fallen apart is because I am taking care of myself medically and mental health wise. I've been going through a lot of really intense therapy lately, and I've been crying a lot, to be completely honest. Which is great. I like having access to those emotions. I just wish I didn't need to. That would be great. Plus, this whole process of like creating a narrative out of my existence for this book is really kind of forcing me to like see everything for what it is objectively, and like that's why I do it. That's why I make these videos, because the act of editing and making a cohesive narrative out of them helps me make sense of my life, and it helps me feel like I'm not doing it for no reason, that I'm actually helping someone, I hope. But yeah, it is hard. I'm having a hard time. You know, I'm getting through, I'm okay. It's just made me lose a lot of my free time. No, that's not the way I should think of it. I really should think of it more as like using my free time to enhance my quality of life, which is exactly what it is. And as always, the absolute last thing I want to talk about is bottom surgery, which I have made literally zero progress on if you don't count actually building up to it. Basically, I have the 2 surgeons in my area that I'm willing to consider, and I have a friend in the trans community who's going through the same process, and I'm trying to pick up some info from her along her journey as well. Yeah, I'm just trying to like put it all together and actually get to the point of just scheduling the consultation, which does not mean I'm committing to that surgery or that surgeon, but I'm basically trying to treat it like a job interview. Like, I'm trying to treat it as like practice, like, hey, even if you're not the surgeon I end up going with, I will now know how to talk about this surgery with a doctor and not feel totally terrified. I know who I have to call, I know what I have to do, I'm just not doing it yet. That if I'm fighting to survive this situation, I really need to be fighting it on all fronts. I need to be able to feel like what I'm working for and coping with is worth something, and that I'm actually working towards it and making continuous progress. And like, I've made a lot of progress this past month. I've made a hell of a lot of progress on my facial hair. I've made progress on, you know, figuring out exactly how to fix this stupid birth certificate error, which again is not specifically transition related, but it is a fear of mine because I am trans, which is a whole other thing. I am making progress. I just need to feel like I've got everything making progress, and perhaps that's a bit overwhelming for me, but I feel like I've not taken on more than I can handle. I think I'm just not handling it well. So yeah, I'm just trying to keep moving, keep going. I just need to make the call. And like, that's arguably the hardest part. I've also been reflecting a lot on this past year because I'm reaching the point where I've reached the anniversary of my vague booking about my transition, where I was like posting about my transition, but not in specific terms that anyone could really pick up on. In particular, the anniversary of my car crash came to mind, but like, I'm just kind of making sense of the real roller coaster of a year that I've had, and I have to admit that I've made a hell of a lot more progress than I ever imagined possible, and I'm a lot happier than I ever thought that I could be. And like, it's not long ago that I was just not happy and miserable, and I need to remember this in terms of my victories rather than how miserable I currently still am with what I'm going through. Because all of the struggles that I'm currently living through are purposeful. All of them will get me towards a goal where I can be happy with my life, and that's something. you know, and it's definitely proven to be the case so far. Every step of this process has been increasingly joyous for me. I feel really happy about where I'm at relative to where I was and where I'm going relative to the direction I was heading before. So yeah, I am tired. I actually have a pin that says trans and tired, and that is very me. So I do apologize for the infrequency of my updates on this channel and my videos in general. I am trying. I'm really trying. I'm working really hard in my personal life, and that has to take precedent. Maybe I'm pushing myself too hard, but either way, nobody else is going to push me, and I'm going to have to deal with this myself. So, onward. I'm getting there. I feel like I'm getting somewhere. So that's something. And that is all for this transition update video. I'll be back again sooner or later with another video that I hope you'll find interesting. Until then, stay curious.